best quarterback in the NFL.
Well, as you guys know, and I may say this later on in the show as well, 5 to 15 or 16 is fluid.
5 to 15?
It is fluid.
That's too big of a group.
Let somebody let Brock Purdy or J-Lo have a huge year,
J-Lo.
and you'll be talking about them as number 5, Jordan Love.
I forgot about J-Lo.
Yeah, J-Lo. Right now,
5 to 15 is never
Too, no, that's
It
too
was 5
many.
to 10.
That's
and then you opened it up to 12.
Because he couldn't.
But when
put
did 12 to
Purdy-
15
This is a backlog of Purdy.
No.
But go ahead.
I'm right now. I'm gonna say Jaden Daniels. Right now, I'm gonna say Jaden Daniels. Now, I get it. A sophomore slump is on the table or whatever. We saw C.J. Stroud have it, but this guy, he's only got 1 year. But it was the best rookie season we've ever seen. All right? He took a 4-win team with a first-year coach to 12. They went 12 wins and the NFC Championship game. And he was very good in the championship game.
It was close
He
blowout.
can run it, but it wasn't because of him. It was because of the defense that they got blasted. He can run it. He can throw it. He's accurate. He's poised. He's a leader.
Tough.
He had one really good weapon in Terry McLaurin. That was it. Then it was the running game was pretty good, okay, right? The offensive line was solid, no doubt. Tight ends, okay. He didn't have any, nothing was set on a platter for him, and he went out there and got it done. So right now, I think I'd have to go with Jaden Daniels.
Okay, so I don't know if what my answer is going to work for this little pop we just did on the screen, because I love Randy and glad he's back as well. And this is not about Randy because I think this is general consensus. I think it should be amended.
Oh.
I think that there either has to at this point just be an agreed upon top 3, or there has to be an agreed upon top 5. And by that, I mean this. If you just want to say Mahomes, Allen, Lamar, the guy who, has won a bunch of Super Bowls and has a couple MVPs, and the other 2 most recent MVPs who are always in the playoffs every single year, that's your top 3, and after that is debatable. Or if you want to say Joe Burrow gets to stay in this hallowed ground despite being more than the other guys an injury risk, and has been to the playoffs twice in his career, then you also, the flip side to that fair coin is the guy who doesn't have the numbers but always puts his team in position and just won the Super Bowl, Jalen Hurts, he has to be in that top 5 as well. So you understand what I mean? If we want to say Mahomes, Allen, Lamar have levitated above the rest of the league, so be it. But if we're saying Joe Burrow...
Okay. Okay, let's talk about this. Jaden Daniels being top 5 or being the 5th best quarterback in the NFL, according to Brew. Here's the reality. We've talked a lot about this, and I just got this jolt of a realization that, the offseason, I forgot how much the offseason is surrounded by these lists. And the problem is that everyone has different lists. So we're always talking about, did you hear about so-and-so's top 5? How about so-and-so's top 15? And what about this guy's top 10? And it's just just ends up being all over the place. And this is why I always talk about, what is the logic and what is the criteria? Because trying to figure out exactly someone's top 10 or top 5 or top 15 or whatever it is that's a losing battle. It's a losing battle. And that's why I look at it and think logically, how do we get here? And so my take for this specific one about Jaden Daniels, and I'm going to go off of Nick's reaction and what Brew said. If what Brew is saying, the logic that Brew is using to put Jaden Daniels at 5th, he then should put him higher. That's kind of my point. If you want to withhold Jaden Daniels because you're I need to see him do it for more than a year, then I totally respect that. But that's why I really keep emphasizing these are fundamentally different conversations then. That's what this kind of gets, weirdly boiled down to. And if you're not, and if you're looking at it more from a perspective of, well, what quarterback would you want moving forward? And like that's the thing, like if you had to really pick right now, and I'm sure if I asked Brew right now, you had to pick which quarterback do you want moving forward from this point forward, nothing to do with the contract. Leave that out of the window. Who would you rather have? Joe Burrow or Jaden Daniels? I believe a lot of people would pick Jaden Daniels over like a Joe Burrow. I really do. Lamar, people have a very personal relationship to Lamar in terms of how great they think he is, and of course Mahomes and Allen as well. But Burrow is that one that people are more a little bit kind of like, well, is he? And Burrow is elite. Burrow is absolutely undeniably special. He plays, out of all those quarterbacks listed, he plays for the worst franchise. That's just the reality. And I feel as though Washington Commanders fans could sympathize with that they understand what it's like when your team is so poorly run. They've been through it for decades, and not even a great quarterback can survive that. And I'm going to be making a separate video about that. But with Jaden Daniels, it's like, okay, in a lot of ways, depending on the criteria that you're using, if you're willing to put him top 5, well, then you should put him like top 3 or top 2. Like that's what I really kind of keep just planting my flag in. If you're taking the other approach, which I try to be as practical as I can be, and you guys know, and I feel protected to be able to make these types of comments because I've been so incredibly high on Jaden Daniels, and I'm saying that Jaden Daniels, is taking over the NFL. But if we're going to back ourselves in a corner with these lists, I do think then it's fundamentally fair to put him there because of that whole 1 year thing, because it's only been 1 year, and I do think it's fair. But then you kind of have to then continue to keep that logic going, because then it's like, well, then where is Stafford? Where is Jalen Hurts? Where is trying to think of any of these other quarterbacks floating around that have had a lot of success, Super Bowl success specifically. That's when the questions then start. That's where then these lists start to get kind of interesting, honestly. Because I do think what Jaden Daniels did was wildly impressive and obviously special, and I believed in him every step of the way. But it's just like, I don't know. The only way that you could just leave him at 5, and that's what I'll just keep saying, is if you're just saying, I can't put someone above that specifically because he has to at least do it for a couple other years. I think that's fair. I do, but the way how Brew explained this, and talking about the best year and what he was able to do and this, that, and the third with the roster, it's just like, well, then if you're using that logic, then he should be elevated. But then the problem is, because then he was also talking about the future, where he's like, I know, sophomore slump. And that's like, then it's like, well, now you're trying to predict the future. Or you're trying to like think about the possibilities of the future. And it's just like, I don't know. I think the more you have these top 5, top 10, top whatever quarterback conversations, in a lot of ways, they just continue to get messier and messier. Because really, again, the fundamental theme is like, well, what are we actually really asking right now? Who's had the better career up to this point? Who do we think is the better quarterback moving forward? Like, right? Like, we obviously know what Mahomes achieved for the first, 4 or 5 years or whatever. But yet, a lot of people believe that Lamar Jackson and Josh Allen have been playing better. But at the same time, it's like, well, considering what we saw with Mahomes, who would you rather have in a big moment, Lamar Jackson or Patrick Mahomes? I do think, to the core, Lamar Jackson has been playing better football than Patrick Mahomes over these last couple of years. But if you ask me, who do you want right now to start your franchise, it's like, I'm taking Patrick Mahomes over Lamar Jackson without hesitation. Without hesitation. If you're talking about right now, we're factoring in ages and whatnot, and we're factoring in injuries and all of this other stuff now, it's like, who do you want right now? It's like, well, probably going to go with Jayden as number 1. Because he's got significantly longer track. He's got a longer path ahead of him. Ideally, it should be that way. I've seen him play big in big games. I've seen him do it every single playoff game so far. Can't say that about Lamar. Joe Burrow does have the injury concerns. Allen takes a beating. I don't know how long that's going to last, honestly. I really don't. And Mahomes, again, let's see, he's going to be 30. His mobility is already becoming less and less part of his game. Now, I believe he'll still be able to survive and still be a great quarterback in the pocket and whatnot. But if we're adding this other dimension of what Jaden Daniels has, he has at least another 3-4 years before he has to worry about, okay, it's time for me to take care of my body more than I did earlier in my career or whatnot. So that's why, like I said, these conversations always get a little wonky, and why I always try to have this conversation in a little bit different of a way, because otherwise, like, what am I just going to keep making the same video again and again and again, who my top 10 quarterbacks are? Like, you got to find different ways to have the same conversation, which is what they're attempting to do in a way. And that's why I'm going to make a separate video about Nick's, like, deeper take about changing it between, like, a bona fide top 3 or bona fide top 5, which is an interesting way to have the conversation. But I think that needs to be its own video, considering Brew just kind of went on this whole Jaden Daniels rant, as well as Nick Wright being, like, shocked that he even uttered that. So yeah, but we'll talk about that in different videos. But those are just my thoughts. I'd absolutely love to hear yours. What do you guys all think about Jaden Daniels' top 5? I really encourage you guys to try to really think about this as practically as you can. I know a lot of Commanders fans are going to watch this video, a lot of Jaden fans, and they're going to be like, no, he's the best, he's great, he's taking over the NFL, and I get all of that. But I guess try to think about it as practically as you can. We saw him play for a year. It's like, what conversation are we actually having when we're saying who these top 5 quarterbacks are? It's trickier than I think than meets the eye, honestly. Because we know also if there was a lot of past involved, well, then Aaron Rodgers would technically be at the top, right? And so it's like, well, who's playing top 5 right now? And it's like, well, if we're having the question, then who is right now? It's like, well, then Jaden Daniels, like, can you really argue it? If anything, then you would technically argue that Mahomes is not then maybe potentially in the top 5, like, or in the like that he would be ahead of him. Because I said this before, Jaden Daniels played better football last season than Patrick Mahomes did. But obviously Patrick Mahomes has the track record, so it's like, and you'll feel more confident about Mahomes in the future than you would Jaden Daniels in the future, because of what we've seen. Like I said, the more you talk about it, the more you untie this knot, the more you realize, oh man, it's still completely knotted. So let me know your comments in the comments below. I read every single comment, so that's a lot of comments. So whether you agree with me or disagree with me, either way, let's get in some discussions, let's get in some fights. But ultimately, let's just have some fun. And please do consider subscribing. We're building an amazing community here, and absolutely love to see you part of it. I want to build something that we all generally feel connected to, something that we're really excited to be part of. I think we're on our way to doing it. Please don't forget to give this video a thumbs up, as it really does help with the visibility and the algorithm. Thank you so much. See you next time.